Okay, for episode 10, this is called In and Out surgery, which when I think of In and Out now, it's always hamburgers. We spend way too much time there in the summertime, but it's tradition. In and Out before hamburgers meant In and Out surgery to me. Becky and I went to, as mentioned in the previous episode, we went to Canada. And then came back and decided we were going to get married. We got engaged on January 20th. And something that had happened between Canada and getting engaged is we went to a New Year's Eve or New Year's Day party at my grandmother's house. And as I'm getting out of the car, I extend my leg that had always given me problems. It was sore throughout my whole mission. It gave me problems in high school. And I never knew why. I never went to see a doctor about it, but it had given me problems. And recently, over the Christmas break, I had played some basketball and it had swollen up for the first time. And so I'm thinking, gosh, this is really weird. But, I've got so many other things to think about. Just move on with life. I get out of the car, I extend my leg, and I hear snap, crackle, pop like I've never heard before. It wasn't painful, but it was notable. And ever since that moment, I would notice that there were times where I would extend or be walking or something and then feel this sharp pain, something hitting a nerve in my knee. And on top of that, I could feel something floating around. Like I knew the thing that was hitting the nerve was like not connected like it was before. So this is freaking me out a little bit. This happens on January 1st, and I'm not quite sure what to do. Other than I should go see a surgeon or something. And I see a surgeon and the plan is, well, we need to operate on this. And most likely what it is it's just cartilage or whatever floating around, and we'll just do a quick in and out surgery, pull that stuff out, and you should be good to go. So that was the plan. And of course, that kind of thing takes a little while to see the doctor and to make the appointments and things like that. And all the while, I'm going to school. I'm planning at this time in my life to become a chiropractor, which is let me graduate with a bachelor's degree and some classes that will help me in chiropractic school. But that was the plan. My grandfather was a chiropractor. I thought, why don't I just follow in those footsteps? It seems like a good lifestyle, provide for the family, etc. And I end up having this, rewind. Becky and I get engaged on the 20th of January, as I mentioned. 5 days later, on the 25th, I go in to have this in and out surgery at the McCady Hospital. And my plan was essentially have the surgery and then probably need about a week and a half to take off work, to take off school, but then just get right back into things. That was my plan. I arranged it with my professors and we were good to go. And at the time we got engaged, we were planning on a May wedding date after the semester had ended. Because it seems like, why would you want to get married during finals week? That seems crazy, right? And so we get engaged and then I have the surgery. I go in and as I'm being wheeled out, I'm coming out of the anesthesia, I hear the nurses talking about wheeling me into a room, and it sounds like they're wheeling me into a room for an overnight stay, which didn't make any sense to me, but of course I'm kind of groggy, right? I get wheeled into this room, and my mom and Becky are there. They have been wedding planning this whole time, as one does when you get married, and they had all this time to do it as they waited for my surgery, and so they're planning this wedding, and I'm discovering as I get wheeled in, they say, hey, so the surgery didn't go as planned. And I'm thinking, well, that's really strange. Like, what's going on? Am I here for overnight? This is weird. And they said, yeah, you're going to be here overnight. It wasn't removing things from your knee. It was actually the doctor found that a piece of your femur had broken off of the bottom of that bone and was floating around the knee and needed to be grafted back into place. So he screwed that thing back into place. And so because they changed the strategy, like they had to contact Becky and my mom, like, hey, is this okay that we do this, right? So there was that whole thing while they were trying to do the wedding stuff. And anyway, they knew well before I did that the recovery was going to be much more than the in and out surgery recovery of a week and a half. My recovery became all of a sudden, I needed to be off of my leg for like 3 months. I needed to be non-weight bearing and have it straight in like a demobilizer for half of that time, for like 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks. And I didn't know how I was going to continue to go to school, walk around Weber State, on crutches. I couldn't drive because it was my right leg, so I couldn't get to school. All these things, like I couldn't do work because my job was delivery. I was delivering flowers at the time, and so I'm like, well, I've got to quit these jobs. Like, how is this going to work? Our whole plan was for me to just be able to work, and go to school. We'd have just barely enough money that we could start our lives together by putting a deposit on an apartment and just, making our life together, right? Starting in May. And at one point in the conversation, it was either Becky or my mom that says, oh, by the way, speaking of May, we couldn't get the reception center that we wanted in May, but they had lots of dates available in April. Of course they did. No one wants to get married during finals week. So they said, well, we scheduled the date for April the 18th. And I'm sitting in this bed and I'm just like, you gotta be kidding me. We barely had enough runway in the first place. And now I've got 30 less days. I don't have jobs. School is, I don't even know what's going to happen to school. I've paid all this money to go on my, choir tour. I don't know if I can do that now if I'm not going to be a student. A lot of stuff to figure out, and just felt crazy in despair. And in only the way that Becky can, and she's done this then, she's done this many times since, she looks at me and she just says, it's going to be okay. And I believed her. I don't know why. She didn't know anything more than I did. She was seeing the same barriers that I was. And she says, it's going to be okay. And I won't bore you with the details of everything other than I was probably way more ornery than I should have been recovering. I needed to be driven everywhere. It was a hard 3 months. We celebrated Valentine's. I went on the choir tour, but I was on crutches. I had barely removed the demobilizer so I could bend my leg, so I could be on a plane a little more comfortably, but it was a challenge. She said it would be okay. The work, it wasn't that I found new work necessarily, but work circumstances, I was able to figure them out, and things happened. And we were ready for that April 18th wedding date. Right before I got the go-ahead from the doctor, he said, this looks like we've healed quicker than expected. I think you're good to be weight bearing on it. So, fortunately that happened like a week or two before we got married. And so no sign of crutches, the very crutches in that corner, but no sign of crutches in the wedding video at all. And we get married on the 18th of April. I have a visit to the surgeon after, because I've got these screws that are holding this bone in place, and they need to be removed. They weren't meant to just stay put. That surgery was to be 10 days after, on Becky's birthday, on the 28th of April. I thought, oh gosh, we get married and what do I do? Like, this is how we celebrate your birthday? Come on. But it worked out. And 10 days after that, Becky had planned some birthday plans for us. And she said, hey, let's go to Subway. We'll get some sandwiches. And then since you're able to walk now, you're recovered from your second surgery. Let's hike Malin's Peak. And I'm like, I don't know if that's a great idea, but we did. I don't know that the surgeon ever thought, it was the first time he had done that surgery. And so he wasn't making any promises, but he was a little bit more reserved as far as like, hey, am I going to be able to run like I was used to? Am I going to be able to play basketball and things like that? And turns out I've been able to do all of those things. And I wasn't even a runner back then, and have done plenty of marathons. I'm sure Dr. Stewart would be proud of his work. My knee still aches. I don't think it's related to what he did at all. Probably other things, but man, super, super grateful for not only his expertise in putting me back together, but Becky's faith in helping me understand, hey, this can happen. And then just relying on the Lord to make it so. And we've experienced difficulty and surprises since, and we go back to that memory. It's one of those foundational memories. It's like he has not forgotten us. He was there then, and he's still here. And we'll get through this thing. So, anyway. I think I'm saying anyway at the end of all these episodes. It's a tick. It's one of those nervous ticks.